So I hope you guys enjoyed that panel. Big surprise. I'm a big believer that Bitcoin is for everyone. I think we all share that. And what I'm happy about is people are starting to appreciate that you can buy 10 cents, $1 worth of Bitcoin, and you can buy $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. And in recent years, as the Bitcoin thesis has become more obvious to people, as more people are appreciating its value, more players are coming into the space. And that's great, because that means more liquidity in the space. It pumps our bags, of course, which everyone's happy about. And more importantly, it spreads Bitcoin to more and more people around the world who can avail of the benefits and the freedoms that it provides. And so today, I want to introduce to you guys the Billionaire Capital Allocators panel. And I'd like to introduce first Orlando Bravo, co-founder and managing partner of Thoma Bravo, the largest technology private equity firm in the world. Ricardo Salinas, founder and chairman of Grupo Salinas. Dan Tapiero, founder and CEO of DTAP Cap and 10T Holdings. Marcelo Claure, the Chief Executive CEO of SoftBank International. And holding it down is my man, Foss the Boss, Greg Foss, 35 years in the high yield credit markets.
Thanks, man. How much time?
All right. Hey, guys, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so proud to be up here. My name's Greg Foss. My granddad told me, surround yourself with greatness. Papa, how am I fucking doing? These men are brilliant.
No.
They all passed grade 11 math. And this is a Bitcoin conference, not a shitcoin conference. So I have a mallet here. If they bring up shitcoinery, they got a little tap, a love tap, all right? Listen, guys and ladies, the Bitcoin community is absolutely beautiful. It's about giving. I've never met so many givers in my life. Perhaps that's because I worked on Wall Street and Bay Street, where the whole world are takers. But these guys are giving their time to help educate us about risk management. But at this point, please give yourselves a hand for being here to learn about what I feel is the best asymmetric investment opportunity that I've seen in my 30 years of managing risk. Okay? These guys are going to tell you why. But please welcome them with a big round of applause. I have questions for them. Thank you for being here, gentlemen. All right, so they're all accomplished risk managers. I'm going to start off with a pointed question for each of them, and then I'd ask you guys to follow up, okay? We've talked individually, and I'm going to start with Ricardo. All right. And what resonated with me when I was speaking with Ricardo was the fact that he's lived, a Mexican who has lived the hyperinflation of Mexico.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't mind, if you could expand to the audience your experience and why you were concerned with other fiat currencies. So listen, Bitcoin solves the fiat Ponzi. No other shitcoin solves the fiat Ponzi. Remember, the biggest challenge here is the fiat Ponzi. Bitcoin solves this. Over to you, Ricardo, and your experience. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, one of the things about being Uncle Ricky here is I'm the oldest guy around, so. And it's one thing to understand a theoretical problem, another thing is to having lived it actually in your skin. So I have a big grudge against fiat, and they call it the fiat fraud, because that's what it is. It's a fraud. And we have all these promoters across the world promoting fiat fraud in different flavors. You can have the Japanese flavor, the American flavor, the Euro flavor. It's all a fraud. But my story is when I started working in Mexico in 1980, I was a young guy, got out of school, did an MBA, came back to work in Mexico, was making $2,000 a month, pretty good at that time. But 6 years later, my salary was down to $20 a month. So that's hyperinflation. And at that time, we thought in Mexico that the way out was through the dollar, you know? So we all tried to save in dollars and make money in dollars. Unfortunately, today, 2022, it looks to me like the guys who are making dollars in 6 years might go from 2,000 to 20. So I would put a big warning sign, you are here and going there.
That's a beautiful...
Unless you buy Bitcoin.
So that's a great response. And remember, managing risk is about changing your portfolio allocation when the information changes, right? Don't stick to a trade when all the information indicates you should reverse that trade or at least get out of it. That's what these guys do well. And I know, Orlando, you had a question, or you had some feelings about where you feel the US dollar is going as well. Can you add to Ricardo's experience and projections on that front?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to say something. I am fired up to be here. Look, I love my job. I've been in the business of getting in touch with these great innovators in software and in technology and helping them become great companies, and I love what I do. But I just came in last night from New York, and to see this crowd together, in total of 30,000 people that have created a new financial system that crosses all borders, that is fair, that competes against monopolistic systems, as Ricardo was saying, I feel that energy. And by the way, Greg, I heard that one time you got so fired up that you just walked out the stage. I can see that now. I think we need to see that today.
Well, it was because I was speaking too much, so be sure and throw donuts at me if I keep talking. You guys want to hear from these guys.
But look, you don't, so I'm going to be brief because we have I'm honored to be here with all of you, just awesome group. You don't have to be an economist to see what's going on with inflation. It is plainly obvious. The fiscal policymakers issued a $2 trillion package after the economy was doing very well, and it came after the first $1 trillion package. Altogether, that was 26% of US GDP.
Oh my God.
The largest one before that was the Marshall Plan at 2% of GDP. So you can make all kinds of excuses on supply chains and all the geopolitical issues, but when you pump that much money into the economy, you're going to grossly devalue that currency. And for me, and I wasn't an innovator in Bitcoin. I'm a latecomer, and I love it. But for me, the Bitcoin represents a competitive system to those government-owned monopolistic currency systems. And it'll have to make them better if not all of us will have a voice and an ability to exit. And that's what's going on.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Marcelo, would you like to add to the US dollar outlook if you...
So you said it very well. I mean, not only was the economy performing, but then COVID came in, and the only way that the government could react was by issuing and pumping more and more capital, pumping more and more dollars into the economy. So what that has created is inflation, close to hyperinflation, because we've never been so many years that we've had, this sort of 7.9 or in Europe, 8.5% inflation. And now we're desperate. And now we're going to be in the hands of the Fed to figure out if they can figure out how to do a soft landing. But if they overcorrect, then we're going to move from inflation to recession really, really fast. And recession is very dangerous because we've seen what happens in recession. So we're at the mercy of a government today that hopefully the Fed can figure out a way through their interest rate hikes of not to basically slow down this economy to the point that it takes us to recession. This is a point of why, I have made a decision to increase my personal allocation on crypto, being Bitcoin 80 or 90% of my holdings, to actually increase it to 10% of all my entire holdings, which is a big, from what we traditionally, capital allocators, the safe thing that was said to us was, hey, keep everything at 2%. So to us, we're starting to see Bitcoin as one of the safest way in order for us to maintain our wealth. But more importantly, also, it's probably the only investment that exists today where the potential of gains is so much larger than the potential of a
asymmetry. Asymmetry. And Dan, I'm going to get to you, but you know what's weird? It's awesome, and this is not scripted. Look, I'm from Canada, right? And I love the USA. I've told you guys that. I've told you how much I love the USA. The USA cannot fail. It absolutely cannot fail. And when I say that, I mean the US dollar. I do not want it to fail. But you guys are doing a great job at pushing yourselves to that eventuality. Isn't it interesting? We talked with 3 very successful, I hope this isn't an insult, Latinos or Latin American, I'm from Canada. Canada is going to fail 10 years before the USA fails. It's fiat. And I'm a proud Canadian. I don't want it to happen, but we have a buffoon as a prime minister who says things like, the budget will balance itself.
Yeah.
Now that's, if he was the CEO of a publicly traded company, he'd be fired on the spot, all right? You can't say stuff like that. It's irresponsible, it's immature, it's what a drama teacher says. Okay. Canada is in trouble. It's a G7 nation. Turkey is a G11 nation. Look around you, not around you, look outside of the USA. People see stuff happening more quickly. The USA is privileged. It's got a reserve currency status. But Bitcoin is going to become the global reserve asset. This is an aside. Over to my friend Dan Tapiero, who has managed a lot of money successfully in a macro environment, and his words were, there's no alpha left in macro. I hope I'm paraphrasing that correctly. He has decided, and since we both manage money at hedge funds, I'd like to switch the conversation to the current challenges of traditional asset management and the 60-40 portfolio, and why people need to consider alternative silos like, and I'm going to say digital assets, but I'm focusing on Bitcoin. So, Dan, would you expand on the 60-40 portfolio, what you think, what the future holds there?
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks, Greg. Let me just, what he's talking about, the 60-40, is what traditional asset allocators, the exposure that they hold, and that's 60% in assets or equity and 40% in bonds. Right, I know, bonds, right. Well, and what's happened is that that's been a brilliant strategy for the last, from 1981 really until, until actually very recently. But now you have negative 7% real yields. In the US, you have $200 trillion of cash and debt, mostly negative real yields. And so, you have many pensions and insurance companies, large entities, sitting on a non-productive asset class. And there's really nowhere to go. And so $200 trillion is a lot. If you think there's 500 trillion or so of total assets in the world, there should be, and I think we're starting to see a little bit of a transition out of bonds and cash, again, a little into equity, but I think it's going to be coming into Bitcoin, into this this I call broadly this digital asset world, the returns, obviously, I mean, I look at it as an investor, and the returns, on the one hand, you're losing money in your 30 to 40% of your portfolio versus, Bitcoin, which of course has gone up over 200% annualized since its inception. So I think that as, we have more people here. I mean, I was at the conference in 2019, and it was just, 1,000 people or 2,000 people, 10,000 last year, 25,000. I suspect next year will be more. And, the voice is being heard, and I think we're starting to see also a greater movement from institutions. And I see this firsthand. I myself have 2 pension funds, US state pension funds, that are investors. 3 years ago, you wouldn't have seen that at all. So it's starting, it's slow, but that 200 trillion I mentioned in cash and fixed income, if you take just 10% of that, that's $20 trillion, right? I'm not saying it's all going to go into Bitcoin, but I think people are starting to see it.
Well, let's help people with the math. If 20 trillion flowed into an asset class that's capped at 21 million coins, what's 20 million divided by 21 million? You don't need a calculator for that, people. That's $1 million a coin, okay? Because we're measuring it in today's dollars. The assets are measured in today's US dollar value. So I know Orlando has some viewpoints as to the money that wants to flow in, but I wanted to expand on Dan's viewpoint. Everyone knows who Ray Dalio is, okay? Very brilliant investor, Bridgewater, that created a strategy called risk parity. He would balance his equity portfolio against a leveraged portfolio of US Treasury bonds largely. And as everyone knows, as interest rates go down, bond prices go up. So there was a buffering process that if equity prices fell, the bonds generally benefited from a flight to safety, okay? But it's easy when interest rates start at 14%, when I started trading bonds in the late 1980s, right, and they end up at under 1%, okay? That is bond price support. So Dalio made an incredibly smart business decision by leveraging the bonds, which were less volatile, against an equity portfolio. Brilliant man. Okay, it doesn't work anymore, Ray. It's fucking over, okay? Because interest rates are out now in the US 10-year at 2%, 2.6% when I looked this morning, okay? And they could be on their way back up, except the Fed's gonna have to come in and dampen interest rates because it doesn't work with the debt spiral we're in, but I digress. Listen, the Fidelity report that came out on digital assets, and I'm paraphrasing Fidelity here, it basically said there's only Bitcoin. And then they said there's other digital assets, but understand what they meant was there's only Bitcoin and then there are shitcoins, exactly, okay? Fidelity is going to move the world because if you're if you're an asset manager competing against Fidelity and they offer the silo to invest in this new asset class, you better get your game in gear or you're going to lose your clients to Fidelity. So I'm going to open the panel to the other guys. I know Orlando for sure is seeing you run $100 billion of assets, you have large pension funds. You mentioned to me that you see the interest in this new asset class. Would you like to expand on that for the audience?
Thank you, Greg, yes.
And I will, absolutely, everyone will get a chance. Beautiful.
And it's interesting what you said about a couple of pension funds. That's exactly what we're seeing. So the pension world and the sovereign world is something that, right, I've been in for a long time, 25 years. So we have deep relationships. We know these great people. And when you think about it, in that world of original source of capital, there's about $30 trillion today. And the decision makers are very small groups of people that are actually extremely talented, extremely humble, and they actually do a really, really good job of investing. They're phenomenal allocators. So this is the deal. 2 years ago, I would go around meeting all of them because that's part of what I do. And the first 5-10 minutes of the meeting, It was all about, hey, I heard you like Bitcoin. What's going on? And the individuals themselves are all big believers and personal holders of Bitcoin. But after that 5 minutes was over, then the meeting progressed, and the institutions were not ready to join in this movement of adoption. Now, 6 months ago, I'm getting calls from these really large institutions saying, you know what, I'm building a small bucket here of Bitcoin. And they're experimenting. The key is, for this to really, really be big, is they have to make money. Once they dabble in, if they start making money, the floodgates will open. And you will get another step function in values.
Can I just say one thing? What's really important about that is he's referring to sovereign wealth funds as well. So when you start having these $100 billion, $500 billion entities, sovereign wealth funds, talking about exposure in Bitcoin, adding exposure in Bitcoin, the next thing is for the central bank, and the next thing is for that government. And so, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, wide-scale global adoption. It starts with, I think, the smart allocators you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I may pick up on a little bit on what Dan said, he said the 60-40 allocation, 60 equities, 40 bonds, and he said 40% of the portfolios are in bonds, about 200 trillion. And he said there's nowhere to go. And this is really bad news, because I know for sure that some of you out there are counting on your pensions. And this is very dangerous, because like the poet said, things change gradually and then suddenly. And the problem is that this bond investment is a terrible investment. I wouldn't touch a bond with a 10-foot pole. It's just the worst thing. I mean, the best thing that can happen to you is you get back your $100. That's the best thing that could happen to you.
I love this guy. I absolutely love this guy. Marcelo.
You know,
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Just to go on that, I definitely don't have any bonds. I have the liquid portfolio. I have 60% in Bitcoin and Bitcoin equities, and then 40% in hard asset stocks like oil and gas and gold miners, and that's where I am, man.
Rock and roll. Marcelo.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you a little perspective of, you know, what my life has been. And I started seeing what I call the cell phone revolution, and then I became the CEO of Sprint and merged with T-Mobile and enjoy an era of what's amazing, innovation, disruption, cell phone. After that, we enter something incredibly unique, which some call it the digital revolution or the AI revolution. And for the last 4 years, I've been the CEO of SoftBank International, and we're investing in disruptors of the digital economy and investing about $1 billion a week and manage about $300 billion. Then I started seeing what I like to call the Bitcoin revolution. And about 3 weeks ago, I quit my job at SoftBank in order for me to learn more and start putting all my knowledge towards this new revolution that we're seeing. And I like to call it the Bitcoin revolution, which is what's going to happen next.
All right. Whoa. Wow.
So, wow, eh? You know, at times like this, my sister would tell me, don't say anything, and she's a stand-up comic, so she knows when to sit down. But unfortunately, we have a couple more minutes to burn. That's not unfortunate. I mean, I'm just reveling in this opportunity. Marcelo, can you tell us, you know, you started to expand on it. You've shared with us your exposure to Bitcoin. One of the things I get in trouble with the Bitcoin maxis with is that I'm not 100% in Bitcoin. Now, it's just not the way I've managed risk, and I don't think it's the way the gentlemen on the stage have managed risk either. I'm not saying don't be 100% in Bitcoin, but what I'm trying to say is you don't need to be 100% in Bitcoin as a percentage of your portfolio in order to benefit from the asymmetry of the trade to the upside. I'm going to do just fine. My 40% exposure, and I think we talked about different. Now, I'm not saying go out there and get 40%. I'm saying get the heck off zero. And here's the funny thing. When you get somebody to invest in Bitcoin for the first time, and let's say you get them to 5%, right? And they have 95% in other stuff, it's like they forget the 95%, right? It's they're focused on this 5%. Chill the fuck out, okay? Sit down and I'll talk to you guys in 20 years. The Bitcoin price is a rounding error. And I mean that sincerely. None of us are smart enough to say whether it's worth 25,000 or 55,000. What we are smart enough to say is there's a high probability that it goes way the heck higher from here, and you're supposed to actually be happy if the price goes down so you can buy some more. For the fucking kids. For the kids.
I agree.
For the believers.
Okay, now listen. I'm a selfish boomer. I'm pathetic. You fucking boomers are ruining the lives of our kids. Grow a backbone. Pay your debts. And I'll share something bigger with you. I was suicidal. I spent 30 years managing risk. It takes a toll on you and your brain. And then I hit some other bumps in the road. And one of the reasons I was suicidal is because I was so discouraged about the state of the economy and the future that I was passing to my kids. Now, I had found Bitcoin, but I didn't study Bitcoin like I did. And once I did, I found hope. And I'm not here to preach. I guess I am. I'm preaching to you that this is hope. It's freedom. It's beautiful. It's technologically sound. But you don't need to be all in. That being said, if you are, God bless you. At this point, opening the floor to anything you guys want to talk about. And that includes, you know, Foss, just get off the stage and leave it to us. Go ahead.
I think you made a really important point about not being all in, but not being at zero. I mean, you don't have to be all in. And furthermore, when you buy your first Bitcoin, and I've orange-pilled a lot of friends, the next thing they do is they start checking the damn price on their iPhone watch every 10 seconds, you know. The hell with that. When you buy a house, you're not checking the price of your house every 10 minutes, right? Just sit on it for 10 years, 20 years, and get on. And that's what needs to happen. Sorry.
The point I wanted to add, consistent with that, is you don't have to be 100%, but you don't have to be the first one. You don't have to be the earliest one. I'm certainly not. There's some pioneers here that saw it a lot earlier than I did. I spent 30 years living in San Francisco doing tech, and in this community and in these dinners, that was all around me. I just wasn't paying attention. It took that time to stop. Pandemic came, more time to think. What's important to you? What are your values? And then you see this and you're just overwhelmed with the importance of it and what it means to society as a whole. It's consistent with the movement and with the revolution that Marcelo spoke about. Is when I started looking into it, is how open the community is. Everyone would talk to me, everyone would be ready to share thoughts, everyone would be ready to teach me about it. And what I found in my sector is anybody who takes the time to slow down and really understand what's going on becomes a big believer in it.
So I like to say that I moved. First, when I got into Bitcoin was because I have an older son who was just beating the hell out of me every day. He says, "Dad, you're the only guy who doesn't get this, and you think you're a smart guy investing in tech and all that." I know. So you got to pay attention to your kids. So I actually took a step back and say, what is going on in the world? And the world is a fascinating place today because of AI. Pretty much every company, every company, and every function is going to be massively disrupted. But the big disruptors are basically centralized companies, right? Google centralizes every search with every web page. So everybody has to use Google. It's sort of like a monopoly. You look at Facebook, the ledger is, they're centralizing identity. You look at JP Morgan, they're centralizing all assets. And the new world is going to be one in which you're going to be able to transact on a peer-to-peer basis without the need for JP Morgan or all these banks to take a toll as we transfer value. And then the big aha moment came to me when I realized, what is the internet? What has the internet done? Google and others. They have allowed the free flow of information, but they were never able to perfect the free flow of value.
Yeah.
And the powerful thing of Bitcoin and everything that's going on, what I like to call the next 5 years are fascinating, because AI is going to continue to disrupt, while at the same time you have a new force disruption, which is a whole digital currency, which is being led by Bitcoin. And that's just incredible. The fact that we're going to be able to transact on a peer-to-peer basis without these central intermediaries that attack our privacy and that attack our ability to just send our assets from whoever we want to whoever we want. That was a big moment for me that allowed me to move from a FOMO investor, say I'm scared that I'm the only idiot who's not investing, to a fundamental believer that we're into something that is relatively big and bigger than anything that all of us must have experienced before.
Yeah, he's orange pilled for sure.
I would just say one thing, really. If any of you are worried that you're late to this, just remember that only 2 to 3% of the world have crypto accounts or crypto wallets. So, I mean, the way I see it over the next 10 years, any sort of reasonable adoption rate, I think we're going to be up at least 10 times from that in the next 10 to 15 years. So, I always say to my analysts, it's never too late to do the right thing. I think that's especially the case here.
This is like being in the internet in 1994.
Right.
And if we all knew what happened to the internet in 1994, a few people have turned into the richest people in the world by betting on the internet in 94. And I think Bitcoin, where it's today, is basically where the internet was in 94, 95 from an adoption curve.
Good point. However, I would qualify that a little bit, Dan. Not crypto, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crypto out there, you know?
I know.
And there's plenty of shit coins in that crypto.
Love it.
So what's the point of moving out of one shit coin and moving to another one?
The current shit going being the US dollar is what I infer. So guys, look, I got involved in Bitcoin in 2016. I mentioned my health challenges. Bitcoin in 2016, when I got involved, was under $1,000 US a Bitcoin. Bitcoin is today a better investment on a risk-adjusted basis at the current price. Okay? Don't overthink that fact. What has happened? COVID. The response by the government has painted them into a corner where it is mathematically impossible to stop printing money. They won't tell you that. All you got to do is run the math. With the coupon on the debt making the numerator grow way faster than the global GDP can possibly grow to keep up with it. It's mathematical certainty. There's very few things in life that are 100% certain, but fiat debasement is one of them. Guys, this is so simple. Anyway, I digress. We have 6 minutes left. I'm gonna finish off with something, but I want anybody here to give 2 minutes, let's say, anything, any subject for the audience. Up to you guys.
Okay, so hyperinflation really damages two kinds of people. The most vulnerable. Number one, it ends any pension that you might be expecting down the road. Your savings are wiped out. So people that depend on their savings are very hardly hit. Young guys, we can always get a salary increase, move from here to there, they'll make it. Older people who have saved all their lives and depending on a pension, they're going to have the hard end of the stick coming to them. The other kind of people that are really damaged by hyperinflation are the poor people, because they don't have assets. So it's not a pretty sight. And we should be able to point the finger at who's responsible for this. Because if you and I go around there printing money, we get put in jail for fucking counterfeiting, right? And they get promoted to the treasury.
I just want to say, Greg, thank you for sharing that. We need you in this world. You're the best.
Wow.
And you are just absolutely awesome. And we need more Gregs out there. Really, really, really amazing. Wow. And look, I just want to end with how proud I am of this community. When I hear all these criticisms from the establishment in financial services about, oh, this is used by bad people and fraud and this, come on. This is a group of phenomenal people that want what is right, that want freedom, that want democracy, that want to cross borders. It is just an awesome movement, and you're here. And of course, the adoption is going to increase over time. What do you think? Is it going to go down? Do you think less young people are going to be involved or more? No brainer. Do you think the dollar is going to go up or down? It's very, very, very telling. So thank you for having me, and I've really enjoyed being part of this.
Marcelo.
So, we've experienced, the greatness of Bitcoin and the ability that we can help people that needs it. What I've seen is, just in this year alone, what happens when the government controls something. When there was money that was sent to the truckers in Canada, the government seized all that money because they use traditional ways. When we send money to help people in Ukraine and we've used Bitcoin, that money is getting there, and absolutely no Russia or nobody can stop us from sending money to Ukraine. So it's been an incredible use. Yeah. And I will tell you something for the ones that were here last year at this exact same conference in Wynwood. You have no idea the impact that you have created in my life. After seeing so many crazy people together, that's what woke up my interest to say, I no longer want to be just a tech investor. I want to change my life, and I want to put a big part of my life to understand this new way, which is Bitcoin. So thank you all for inspiring me last year.
Yeah, I would just end with, I think it's important to understand that this, the invention of Bitcoin, as I like to call it, is a unique invention in the history of financial and monetary history. And so, if you're thinking that you're not sure about it, all of certainly my work and my focus on it, I really think it's bigger than anything I've certainly seen or studied. And it's because it's that ledger of truth, right? We've never had truth.
Bitcoin is truth, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so proud to be on stage with these guys. I'm proud of the Bitcoin community. I've met through the Bitcoin community guys and ladies that I call friends and dear friends now. Guys like Jeff Booth, Preston Pish. I've met a doctor in Madison, Wisconsin, who's involved in an education platform with me because he didn't understand the legacy financial system, and he actually didn't understand the paper I wrote on bond math because, it's actually first and second derivatives are not grade 11 math. But God bless him, he and I have created, along with 4 other global partners, an education platform called LookingGlassEducation.com, where we explain the problems of the current financial system that they don't teach you in high school because they don't want you to know. Because the fiat Ponzi cannot be exposed. I love these guys. I'm proud to be on stage with them. I love you guys. Bitcoin is hope, and I'm going to leave you with this. Last year, at this conference, I met a group of young Guatemalan kids that wanted to start Bitcoin Lake, modeled after Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador. And Jose Lemus and his team at Ibex Mercado had this vision for Guatemala. And then Jack Mahlers, your dog, you came on stage six hours later and you announced you onboarded a fucking country. And I'm like, and these guys are in Guatemala and they live 3 hours away. And they got in their cars and they went to Guatemala and they started the merchant solution for Guatemala. Beautiful kids. I invested in their company a token amount, a lot of money for me, but they just raised $4 million. And they are now onboarding the city of Miami. How cool is that? That's in 1 year, okay? Jose, my friends at Ibex Mercado, you're changing the world. And that's what Bitcoin does. Finally, on behalf of Canada, and thank you for the trucker support. You can vote whatever way you want. You can vote whatever way you want. But Bitcoin is freedom. Thank you. Thank you.
Bravo.
Bitcoin is hope. Well said by Greg Foss. Welcome back to the Marathon Desk hosted by Bitcoin Magazine here at Bitcoin 2022 in Miami. I'm Natalie Brunell. I've traded in my mainstream news desk for this amazing Bitcoin Marathon Desk, and I have an amazing panel with me. We're going to be discussing the conference and all sorts of Bitcoin things. So I want to introduce someone you might recognize, Dave Portnoy, founder of Barstool Sports. Q, he's our anchor of Bitcoin Magazine Live, and Elise Colleen, who founded Stillmark. So first, I'll just throw it right out to you guys. What are you thinking about the conference and the last panel?
No, I've been loving it. To see the conference from 1 year ago to where we've come today, twice the size, GA1, it is starting to get lively all around us here at the news desk. We have a giant volcano that we're sitting right in front of. You know, it's come full circle, and we're excited to be here.
It's Dave's first, right?
It is
Bitcoin
my first
conference.
Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm taking it all in. It's pretty huge, pretty remarkable. But yes, I'm taking it all in. First one.
What's your first impression?
It's huge. Like, I didn't know what to expect,
More
really.
than 25,000 people.
Is it 25,000
More than
people?
25,000 people.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect because I didn't get my credentials, got lost, or I wasn't paying attention. So I came through the front. I had to battle my way in. I had to convince them I was a speaker. So I'm getting the full experience, fighting for parking all the way in. But yeah, it's a full-blown event.
Elise, how many have you been to?
I'm lost count at this point, but this is the one I look forward to every year.
That's awesome. Well, talk to me a little bit about this panel. We heard from the Billionaire Capital Allocators panel, and I thought some interesting things were talked about because, one thing that Greg Foss said is that he met a doctor, right? And the doctor was trying to figure out Bitcoin. And that's his job. His day job as a doctor. We have billionaires who have a lot of people probably to help them understand this technology. But for the average person, I come from a humble background. It's not easy to learn about Bitcoin. So what do you guys think about just, we hear about billionaires who are allocating capital to this type of asset. But for the average person, I mean, it took you a couple exposures, and you're still skeptical.
Yeah, I feel like now it's been 7-8 years. I've gone in and out. I had a guy, Marty Bent, we talked about a little bit, who worked for me, who was trying to convince me. And then I had the Winklevoss twins give me a whole speech that made me think it was totally fake, and I got out. And then I got in about a year ago. So I've been in, out. To be honest, I still am not sure I truly understand all of it, but I know enough people, conferences like this are in it. That's the place I got to be.
Yeah, and one thing that you were saying is that's what convinces you that it's not going away, right? Now we have these big companies. We have people that are putting a lot of money behind it. Is that what convinces you that it's got legs?
Yeah, I think you get to a certain threshold or momentum, and it's like the breaking point where enough people are behind something involved that it's not going anywhere, despite what you hear like a Peter Schiff say or things like that. One of my arch nemesis is now on Twitter.
What are you guys looking forward to for the rest of the day? We're going to hear an announcement from Samson Mount. He says he's going to do a mic drop, so it's going to be pretty big, right?
I mean, Elise and I were actually chatting just about that. This Samson Mount announcement should be one of the biggest ones coming out.
Oh, really?
I'm just going to set the expectation that if he's not announcing on behalf of some sort of a nation state, either adopting Bitcoin or doing something pro-Bitcoin, I'm going to leave it disappointed. But, I like to set the bar very high.
I'm looking forward to some of the new experiences that happen here at the conference by interacting with founders and startups. Greg mentioned one at the end of that last panel, which is Ibex Mercado. Ibex is the payment sponsor for the conference. And throughout the conference center, they have all these different new experiences about how to use Lightning and how to integrate it into your e-commerce experience and brick and mortar too. And so I'm looking forward to playing around with that this afternoon.
Awesome. Dave, what are you most looking forward to? Or what's your biggest question about Bitcoin? If you're still skeptical,
Honestly, I was interested to see the people. I want to see who is attending this thing and see all the people that were here, the different companies. But yeah, the overall vibe, feel the people. Are we getting crazy people in my mind, or are we getting everyday normal people? That's kind of what I want to see.
And have you tried the pizza in Miami?
I've had all the pizza in Miami. 11th Street's the best. So I live here, but shout out 11th Street. Relatively new. That's my favorite.
Yeah. Are you going to pay for it in Bitcoin or no?
They
You're gonna
probably don't
hodl your
accept it. I actually
Bitcoin.
went to a pizza place here and got absolutely ridiculed for selling my Bitcoin.
Yeah.
They call it like they were just calling me paper
Yeah.
hands and things like that. I am diamond now, but yes.
Yeah. By the way, I saw potentially an altcoin portfolio that hasn't been performing well.
Shitcoin
All right,
portfolio.
a shitcoin portfolio that's not been doing Dave so well. So.
But I'm still holding 40,000 down to 2,000.
We hope by the end of this experience, you go from paper hands to diamond hands again.
That's right.
Hold on. I'm already diamond hands. I'm not going to have 29 Bitcoins. I'm holding them for life.
Diamond hands.
I'm
All
going to
right.
die with them.
Coming up is an announcement from Samson Mao. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Marathon Desk, hosted by Bitcoin Magazine, live at the Bitcoin Conference in Miami. If you're watching this at home, you better come next year. All right. So check it out. Next panel coming up.